learning to love God of War 2018. I was convinced that people that praised God of War 2018 on release were really just people that were not really fans of the PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable, and PS3 games, or never really played the games at all, and God of War 2018 was their first game on God of War. Which certainly could be the case, but I was really convinced that was the case for everybody. First play when I did it on release, my judgment was really clouded by the frustration on the changing Kratos characters completely to make him suddenly a dad and how annoying Atreus was, and in general that they were feeling like they were adopting this the Last of Us style in something like God of War. I'm not gonna lie, it felt really disgusting to me and disrespectful to the original material of the previous games, like they never existed or something. Because there was pretty satisfying ending of God of War in the last game, so I thought that that was it, you know, maybe we could get some spin-off games, but these games are just sequels, they're not really spin-off. Back in the day, I really thought that, like, you know, when you make kind of fan fictions when you're a kid, I thought like, oh, you know, this game could be really cool if it was in Egypt and stuff like that. But yeah, this time it felt kind of weird as well for me that suddenly instead of going to somewhere as close as Egypt, he went to so far away to North mythology for whatever reason. With that being said, I finally finished it and gave it a second chance. I finished it the first time, but I only played the story. This time I completely finished the thing, and as I said before, I didn't feel like I gave a proper judgment to the game because my judgment was clouded by my biases over what people were saying back then. They were trying to diminish the how impactful the first games were and how good they were. So I was really against the whole idea of the new God of War back then. But my judgment now was better, so I thought about finishing the games again recently. And I did. The story overall this time felt like it was the strongest suit of the game. You could tell that this time the story was a priority. They wanted to say something specifically. Not that the combat specifically was terrible, but it's just preference that I prefer the previous games. This time I also was understanding that Atreus was meant to be annoying little kid. He was meant to be annoying, he was meant to be arrogant. They wanted you to feel Kratos' frustration when he was dealing with his son, because that's how you would feel if you were him at that point. So I think they really were trying to change the way that you were feeling about things. And if you think back when the previous original games, they were, especially on God of War 3, that you will see sometimes things from the god's perspective. I think that's how it felt with Atreus. Maybe that was something that they thought that you would see it how Kratos would see it. So, with that being said as well, I have to say that even though I could understand Atreus, I still understand Kratos' change as well. And as much as I dislike it, it was a normal path to do for Kratos, the path to redemption, the path to changing as a person and growing. I was reluctant to believe it because I liked how bloodthirsty he was before, and vengeance was something that I really love about characters. It felt the same with why I love Berserk. And this is something that it will feel the same for me if Guts, for example, will suddenly be a dad and wants to be peaceful and do nothing. And I was thinking about it while I was writing this down, and I think that I would feel the same for that as well. So that was the reason really for that. Now, another thing that I want to say is that I really loved the variety of the enemies. They all have very different timings on how you had to react, and while I didn't like the way that they were making this kind of combat that they was sucking on you, I really appreciate what they were going for. So they were trying to make it feel like give you this specific feeling that you were the god of war, that you had to do something more extraordinary because you had this new camera angle. A lot of other things also with the enemies, I will have to say, is about the puzzles. Many times I actually struggled with these puzzles, and the only thing I disliked about the puzzles was that there was not really any platforming, which is kind of understandable because the change of the camera view, but sometimes this puzzle felt too much like they were trying to be too hard, and like not eventually just, oh no, now you know how to solve this. Especially the timing ones, I didn't really like them. It took me sometimes a long time to get it right, but it is what it is. It's a puzzle, not a really big deal for me. But yeah, it was something that I didn't really enjoy. The combat did not really feel as clunky as I remembered. I realized after finishing, now like I played God of War first, and then in between I have finished Elden Ring and all those games, and now that I played this game again and finished it, I realized that they were trying to do something between the Souls-like combat and the basic principles, at least, of a Souls game, and they wanted to add the chaos and the skills that you will have from God of War. However, changing weapons did not feel good at all. Even though the last boss was a skill check of learning everything that you learned with these different weapons and your bare fist combat, it still did not feel great when you were trying to fight with multiple enemies. I think that you will just pick a weapon and usually stay with that weapon. The stages, when you had to fight in stages overall with multiple enemies, they felt really good, and it gave you a lot of chances to deal with enemies differently based on your build of the character, how you will spend your points. For example, you could have very early on pick up the return point with the shield, and you could return back projectiles, or you could just try to hit them with the axe from far away. However you wanted to deal with that, it's how you wanted to deal with that. So it was not really a huge problem, and it was something that you could do personally, and I felt that it was pretty good that they were giving you the opportunity to have agency on the combat, because the combos did not feel as crazy as before because you couldn't really juggle enemies for too long, but it felt still visceral, and for specific moments it felt quite good. Some mini bosses felt like reskins because they were trying to just give you the idea, okay, you have fought this before, fight it again. But I appreciated that they were trying to always add a little bit more of a different mechanics, even for those things that were called like ancients and stuff like that, which is something I really appreciated. And compared this game to Spider-Man 2 that came way after God of War 2018, it really surprised me because this game had figured it out way beforehand that you should have some more things when you're doing reskin enemies, and Spider-Man 2, which is from the same, like, you know, PlayStation Studios, didn't really absorb that idea and was doing the same reskins. They were just doing the same thing. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with God of War, but just like something that I noticed. The story bosses felt great, and I wish I fought more huge enemies, which really felt like fantastic when you were fighting, especially at the start when you fought the first time the dragon. it felt so good. I wanted more monsters in that scale. I wanted so much more of that, but I mean, it is what it is. You still were going around, there was a lot of optional stuff that I liked that they had with God of War, and that felt great. The last boss felt, as I said before, it was a really true skill check of mastering the different weapons and the combat, which was something that was cool for me, and it felt great in doing so, because sometimes I would feel that the game was really, you know, like it was trying to teach you these kind of differences with colors and stuff like this, but personally I don't prefer when games try to do that. I prefer when games try to let you think how to deal with things, and when you really do zero damage you kind of see it. But yeah, at least the colors helped because it was an ongoing fight. It was not just, you know, you're fighting some monsters and then they go away. However, after all these things, my thoughts for God of War has been in terms of acceptance, in terms of understanding that they're trying to do something different, something that was not done before with this franchise, because they were trying to evolve how Kratos was, and they wanted to introduce new characters as well. I really liked all the characters, even the dwarves that really felt kind of like you were just doing some chores for them. I still liked what they were going for. And my favorite character outside of the main characters was Freya. She felt a really, really cool character on the first game, and she really just was there. You know, I don't know about if she becomes playable on the second game, I have to play it, but so far for me, I really, really liked her. And, you know, things happen in the game, it is what it is, but I really hope that they will try to figure things out on the next game. Now, overall, I have to say that while this is not like obviously my favorite God of War game, I still have some things that I didn't really like. I completely understand what they were going for. While I still prefer the older games, I cannot say that I don't like God of War anymore. I cannot say that like, oh, this game is bad and if you play it, you just didn't play the previous ones. No, this is not the case for me anymore. I completely understand what they were going for and what they wanted to do. So that is my overall thoughts about the modern God of War. I will make a video about Ragnarok as well when I can and when I finish the game, because I just started. So thank you for watching, hope you have a beautiful day, and we'll see you next time with more God of War.